And if it seem evil unto you to serve the Lord, choose you this day whom you will serve. If you want to serve the devil, serve him. But make a choice. Whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the flood, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But then he says, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Joshua said, if every one of you serves other idols and other gods, makes no difference. As for me and my house, we've already made a decision. We are going to serve the Lord. And that's a decision that every single person here tonight has to make. You either have to decide that you're going to serve the gods of materialism all around us, or the true and the living God.
So we're going to talk this afternoon about the rewards of serving God. First of all, Hebrews 11:6 says, without faith it's impossible to please God. And those that come to him must believe two things. Number one, that he is. And number two, that he is the rewarder. He doesn't just reward, he is the rewarder of those who what? Diligently seek him out. There's a strength that you'll get from being diligent and by choosing to spend this time with God that will help you get through whatever comes your way next week with victory, while other people may be falling apart emotionally at some much more minor thing because they laid on the couch all day and watched soap operas and ate donuts. That's what God's presence does for us. It energizes us. It encourages us. We need to be encouraged. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. Those who come to him must believe, number one, that he is, and he is everywhere all the time. Whether you feel him or you don't feel him, God is always present in your life. He's always with you. There's nowhere that you go or nowhere that you can ever go where you can get away from him. He knows everything that you have done. He knows everything that you ever will do. And guess what? He loves you every moment of your life.
Living the Christian life in a way that glorifies God and does good to other people. It gets at the utterly crucial issue of a right way of serving God that honors him and blesses people, and a wrong way of serving God that dishonors him and doesn't help people. This is not a marginal issue. We're talking about what it means to be a Christian moment by moment in real life. So let's make it crystal clear that Amy is right, that the Bible teaches almost everywhere that human beings are to serve God. And when the Son of God comes into the world, we are to serve him. Old Testament, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Joshua 24:15. And then Paul celebrates the Thessalonian converts because, quote, you turned from idols to serve the living and true God. So over and over again, Paul calls Christians servants, or literally slaves of Christ and of God. Romans 1:1, Ephesians 6:6. Peter does the same. 1 Peter 2:16, 2 Peter 1:1. It is unmistakable. One biblical way of speaking rightly about the relationship to God that we have is to call ourselves servants or slaves of God and of Christ.
We have to make a choice. Moses had warned Israel much earlier, a generation earlier, when he was dying. He said, I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I've set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that both thou and thy seed may live. He said, a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. Are you unstable about your relationship to Christ? Do you waver in your relationship to Christ? Or are you totally committed to Christ as Savior and Lord? Or do you waver about it? Many of you waver by the way you live. And Jesus warned the hypocrites, people who pretend one thing and live another. This was his great battle with the hypocrites in the church. We have old proverbs that are familiar to us all. He who hesitates is lost. Procrastination is the thief of time. A stitch in time saves 9. A bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. Don't waver. Make a decision. Do it now. That's what Joshua was saying. And Joshua, the great military hero that had led them from victory to victory, reminded them of all the victories that God had given. And he said, serve God and live.
He said, not only do I love you, but I'm always loving you. See, I like that. It's like it's a continuous thing. God doesn't just love us and then not love us. He's always loving us. There's never a moment in your life when God has not loved you, and there will never be a moment when he will not love you. We all want to be loved. You're accepted by God. He adores you.
Now, as soon as we say that, we must ask really pointedly, what's involved in serving God and what's not involved in serving God? If we start serving God as though we could earn wages from him, or as though we could meet his needs, or as though we could put him in our debt and make him our beneficiary, red biblical lights start flashing very brightly.
Right.
For example, in John 15:15, Jesus says to his disciples, no longer do I call you servants or slaves, for the servant does not know what his master's doing, but I have called you friends. For all that I have heard from my Father, I have made known to you. And yet, in verse 14, so the preceding verse, he says, you are my friends if you do what I command you.
The whole thing is make sure that you tell God you love him. Be sure you talk to him throughout the day about different things. I mean, I ask God to help me with this TV and all the things that I need to do. But we don't have to follow. That's the great thing about spending time with God, Spirit-led time with God. You don't have to follow some strict rule and regulation. Now, some people are better if they do that. Some people need
them on
that.
track.
They need that structure. It keeps them on track. But I'm going to spend time with God every morning, some way, shape, or form. Some people like to walk and pray. Some people like to stay inside. Some people like to stay outside. Some people like music on. You do need to have variety in everything that you do. So yes, you can get stale in your spiritual life.